Good evening and welcome to FUMAR Takes. This is our 75th take live from the Caldwell Cigar Studios of Euless, Texas. I'm Bear Duplessis, your host as always, and I am so excited, so privileged, and so pleased to welcome you in on Sunday this night. So for our 75th take, we have a fantastic guest. Going to talk about an amazing subject that I'm really excited about here in just a few moments. But before I get to them, before I get to our honored guest this evening, I do have to pay a shout out to the people that make this broadcast possible. And that, of course, is this show is sponsored, as always, by Drew Estate. Drew Estate announced earlier this week that they are shipping the Acid Plush and the Acid Croqueta to retailers nationwide. Continuing the celebration of the 20th anniversary of Acid, these two purple acids will reach new heights of aroma and taste. President and founder Jonathan Drew says the celebration of 20 years of Acid is truly significant for the modern cigar culture. Acid's impact is unquestionable and will live on forever. Today, we celebrate in deep, powerful purple with the national release of Plush and Croqueta. Long live Acid. And of course, if you are watching us tonight on YouTube, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch this awesome broadcast of the 75th take. But if you are one of our many listeners who download this podcast on a weekly basis, we really appreciate you. Be sure to know that you can download this episode wherever podcasts are available, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Podbean, Spotify, and more. Wherever podcasts are played, you'll be able to find FUMAR Takes, and you will find them exclusively because of Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars. Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars is steeped in tobacco tradition. For 150 years, the Bailey family has been part of America's tobacco heritage, passionately caring for the land they cultivate in Keysville, Virginia. Cornelius and Anthony's devotion to the finest grown tobacco and foremost aspects of craftsmanship allows them to introduce the most exquisite cigars to the market. They invite you to enjoy their portfolio of premium hand-rolled cigars and experience their dedication to producing an exceptional product. So we really appreciate them, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate our amazing guest for stepping in on a Sunday evening. Really excited to talk about the subject, as I said, and he is a man who wears many hats, and he's wearing the appropriate one tonight, because tonight we're going to be talking about AVO Cigars, and the man behind that name, and the man that is joining me tonight is none other than Director of Marketing for Davidoff of Geneva, Mr. Scott Kolesaire. Scott, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Bear. Thank you so much for having me. Can't wait to talk and then let you in on some stuff about AVO Cigars.
It's a real pleasure to absolutely have you, because as part of, as kind of the guiding direction of where AVO Cigars is going today, this is more than just a cigar brand. And, it's the carrying on of a legacy of a man who meant so much to two different worlds, the premium cigar industry and, of course, the music industry. And before we kind of get into all that, I wanted to cover kind of the traditional bases. We were talking about what we were smoking before we got on air tonight, so I want our guests to know exactly what we're smoking. So you've lit up the 2019 improvisation of AVO.
Yes, I have.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the improvisational project? I'm sure most people know what it's about, but for those who have forgotten or have never heard the story, what is the improvisation?
So improvisation, the series basically started back in 2015 when we went through the whole kind of rebrand with AVO and refresh there. And the annual limited edition that came out every March for AVO's birthday kind of took the title name Improvisation Series. So we've had several releases since then, some multiple in a year. And this year, the special one, the LE19, something really cool, something we've been wanting to do for a while. And it's a box press limited edition, 6x52, Ecuador wrapper on it, Dominican binder, Dominican fillers, but also we have some Peruvian tobacco in the fillers as well, which gives it a nice, little different flavor than we're used to. It's in the 20 count box, beautifully done. And really it was talking about, with the mold and the way the cigars are laid in the box, we kind of went with this whole theme because AVO Uvasian really came out with the 75th anniversary way back in 2001. And with that, he kind of started an annual tradition of a birthday limited edition type cigar, and broke the mold with that. And part of what you see on the packaging of the box and the way they're laid in there, actually, I have one here.
Oh, beautiful.
I don't know if we can see it okay, right? So
it's a gorgeous box. It mixes like classical and modern, because I love the way that the 2019 logo is.
Right, locks up, and it's and yeah, your LE19 logo in there, which has the 20 and the 19, but in the box press kind of mold type style, and that's really what we're going with. So it was kind of to pay homage to AVO breaking the mold with this annual limited edition thing, and it's done extremely well. So again, every year, every March, we launch a new limited edition for him, and this year launched on his birthday, March 22nd, and yeah, it's been excellent, and it's smoking great right now, I must say.
One of the Scott, I'm interested to get your take on one of the attributes that I really love about Peruvian tobacco when it's used in a blend is that it tends to give off this really unique but flavorful aroma that's usually very floral and has some citrus qualities to it. Would you say that that's the case with the AVO LE19?
That's correct, and you picked that up, and it's like when we're looking at what blend to release or what we can do, part of it is does it really entice the palate? We love complexity. We don't like one-dimensional. And I mean, anyone that smoked AVO limited editions for a long time knows that. And the piece with the Peruvian part is super important, because it takes it to that next level and gives you those extra flavors that you don't find every day, especially in AVO cigars. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Bear.
I wanted to talk a little bit of cigars tonight, because unfortunately the circumstances have allowed a couple of my last few guests haven't been able to smoke while they've been doing the interview with me. So I've felt kind of bad for them a little bit. So I'm excited to talk a little cigar talk a little bit.
Sure.
What I'm smoking, obviously we talked about a little bit, because you had mentioned Ecuadorian and Dominican, and then Peruvian. The only difference in what I'm smoking in terms of just, blend in terms of like tobacco, the countries where the tobacco's from, is there's no Peruvian tobacco. And of course I'm smoking the AVO Domain 50th, one of my absolute recent favorites. I've fallen in love with this cigar. I think it's sensational. Apparently I'm late to the party though, because this has been around a while, and I knew that. And so we kind of had a moment before the show. I said, so tell me again, like when was this released? Because I mean, this is the first, this year is the first time I've actually smoked this cigar. And you're like, oh, 2002. And I just felt so terrible. And you're like, well, we brought it back in 15. I was like, okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Moment of relief that I haven't gone all that time without having smoked this incredible cigar. But what was so special about bringing back the Domain in 2015 as part of the rebranding, if you will, in that year?
So the AVO Domains, it's a really special. I mentioned that the Ecuador wrapper and then the Dominican binder and fillers. It's like Domain has that, right? Domain, Dominican binder, Dominican filler. But where those tobaccos are grown is a special spot in the Dominican Republic that AVO actually own the fields. That's the only area, and that's where that cigar, the tobacco for that cigar is grown. And it was a little story, a little history. There was kind of a side of a hill, a little area out in the Dominican, and when AVO was driving past, he was like, we should grow tobacco over there. And again AVO's not a farmer. AVO was a musician by nature and stuff, and he's with Henke Kellner and Eladio Diaz at the time, the master blenders, and they were saying, no, you don't want to grow there. And he's like, no, let's grow there. So he ended up buying the plot of land, and they grew tobacco there. The first couple of years, nothing. The yield was not right. And then given some love and given some time, it really birthed this tobacco that had excellent rich flavor into it, and something a little different. The amount of sunlight it got on it really helped, and Hanky at the time was like, we need to make a cigar out of this. So the Domain 10, which is the first one, actually came out in 1998, and that was to celebrate 10 years of AVO Cigars. So it was a Robusto format, 5x50, and it did really well. So then over time, they released the 20, the 30, and then the 50 in 2002. And the 50, actually, that Perfecto format is something very unique to the AVO line, and it was actually they found Dutch cigar molds that actually was that shape, old from like 1920s,
Oh, wow.
when AVO was over there, and he brought him back, and that's what they modeled that shape after. So there's a lot of history with that cigar, and although over time, prior to the rebrand in 2015, AVO Classic was always the star, XO, and this, and Domain kind of got lost along the way, and we felt the blend, the flavors, some of the unique shapes that were offered, and the story behind it was definitely worth bringing into the 4 lines that we started, let's say, the next chapter with back in 2015. So that's where it came out, and it's been on the shelf ever since.
It's truly sensational. I absolutely I get what you're saying with the historical reference of the Dutch mold, because it is an interesting size. I mean, it's a Perfecto. If you've been smoking cigars for any time at all, you've seen a Perfecto. You've seen a double Perfecto, but the length is probably the most unique part of that.
Correct.
So you see them usually pretty small, or in some cases really large, which that tends to be classified as a Salomon.
That's correct.
But this size is truly unique, and this the cigar is incredible. I really enjoy it.
That's really great to hear, man. Yeah, and that 50 was one of AVO's favorites. I mean, that was one of his go-tos. Of course, if you asked him, everyone was his favorite. He could never choose, but just knowing his habits and what he would tend to go to, AVO Domain 50 was always in his little humidor, and it was also one he loved to share with people and give out. And so it's a great blend, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Absolutely. And speaking of AVO, I mean, like you had mentioned a few moments ago, he wasn't a grower, and but he truly created the cigar ambassador.
Yes.
He symbolized and embolized so much about this industry, and he was so interwoven into the fabric there at Davidoff, and then of course with the creation of his own brand, and it became this own identity within the Davidoff portfolio, which we'll talk about here a little bit shortly. But what I wanted to get, as a man who knew him, Scott, because you actually had the great opportunity and the great privilege and honor of knowing him. What is probably one of the biggest challenges of carrying on the lineage of a name and a brand when it's got his name on it after, of course, the tragic passing 2 years ago of AVO Cigars?
It's I mean, probably the biggest challenge is knowing that he's not here, and that a lot of the cigar fans and everything, they were drawn to the brand because of him. I mean, if you didn't have a cigar, if you met AVO Cigars in any place, he would talk to you. He became your best friend instantly. And he always remembered, whether he remembered your name or not, he always remembered meeting you, and he'd always greet you and all of that. And I think one of the things that you always have to look for and bring back is okay, the man isn't here anymore, and how do we still resonate with the emotions that the fans have had for so long, and it was because of this man. And there's ways to do it, right? I mean, the way we look at it too, it's his philosophies, his stories, we have so much rich content there that he just I want to say naturally developed over the years. And I think one of the things is looking to that, and take the improvs, right? The birthday cigar. When I first started working with AVO, we'd be on the road for 8, 10, 12 weeks doing huge events, right? And dinners, and we'd start in New York. We'd start going all around once a week, twice a week, flying to a different city, and hundreds and hundreds of people. And then he would leave me and go over to Basel, Switzerland at headquarters, and go through Europe and do dinners. And he was celebrating his birthday through IPCPR into August, right? And people loved that, and people loved, the stories he'd tell, and he'd always have a microphone and talk to everybody, sign boxes. So I think one of the things is just not having him there. It's are we able to still, talk to the people in the right way, talk to the fans in the right way, and give them what they want, but never lose sight of the creator, and basically make sure that his stories and his philosophies are within every cigar that we make.
I would totally be the guy that goes and attends a dinner in like August, and I'd be like the guy who says happy birthday to him.
Yes, he loved it.
4 or 5 months late.
Right, but he would love that. He always jumped in. If there was a cake for his birthday in August, he blew out every candle, and
awesome.
He relished in it. He did
a rich life for sure. And
sure.
So we were kind of John a little bit before the show about of course the garb that I'm wearing tonight, which is Packers gear, and I'm going to tie that back into AVO because, like you said just a few moments ago, when AVO met someone, he had a way about him that would make you feel like you've known him for years, and make you feel so welcome. But a great person that I know, and I hope he's watching tonight, the former owner and founder of Nomad Cigar Company, Fred Rui, was a really close to AVO. And I remember distinctly, and Fred and I are like-minded people. We're both Packers fans. And so that's kind of the double nod tonight. This week was draft week, but I thought, for Fred and for AVO, it would be kind of a nice little tie-in. One of my favorite moments in reflection of AVO Cigars and in reflection of his life, which very shortly after his passing, Fred had just happened to be in town. And for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, we didn't talk Nomad Cigars. We didn't talk Fred Rui.
Yeah.
He just told these amazing stories about this man that is behind what we're smoking tonight. So that leads me to my next question. I didn't want to just all be doom and gloom. Like, what's the challenge? What are the but what has been your biggest joy about carrying on this man's name that you had the great honor of knowing and the great privilege of working with?
I mean, I think the joy comes in still seeing the reaction to new releases and the different things that we're doing with the brand from the actual cigar smoker themselves, and the excitement that still comes with each release and the buzz around it. And it's the joy there is that we're doing it right. We're doing it the way AVO would want it. I mean, everything we do, it's like, would AVO approve? Is this up to his standards? And I've spent a lot of time with him over the years, and I feel like I know what that is, and I know what that looks like, and his whole thing was to bring joy to people, right? And if you bring joy to people, there's connections that are made, and that lifelong friendships after that, and so on and so forth. So I think some of probably the biggest joys are when we have a new release or something really fun that's out there, and people gravitate to it and enjoy it. And you see whether it's posts on Instagram about how great this is, and this reminds me of the time I sat down and smoked with him and all that. That makes me happy. That's the joy. It's okay, we're doing it right. He would be proud, and really, really happy to be able to do that for him.
The thing that, upon reflection of tonight and having the privilege of interviewing you, and I was thinking about my own experience with AVO, and I kind of went at it in a wave too. when I first got introduced to the cigars, it was like the mid 2000s, and started smoking some and really enjoyed it. And then they didn't, it wasn't intentional by any stretch, like, but they just kind of faded into the background a little bit. But right when you guys start, I've been into the industry now, almost 10 years at this point. And when the refocus that you guys did in 2015, really reinvigorated me. And I think, like you said, reinvigorated a lot of current fans who were still really avid, and those people who kind of, had kind of let it sit on the back burner a little bit. But again, I think the most beautiful thing about all of it is he was able to see it in his last few years, that rekindled fire, and fans likewise were able to see that fire still in him, because he was still doing things until the last moment.
Yes, absolutely. And I think with that, and we knew he wasn't getting any younger, right? He was only getting, and he was still in good health and everything was fine, but it's like we knew at some point, unfortunately, he wouldn't be around. And looking at what Davidoff as a whole, the whole company was working on, the brand Davidoff had just gone through kind of little update with their Time Beautifully Filled campaign, and some new products as well. Camacho had a complete overhaul, really loud. Then that was in 2013. And that also, those two kind of updates with the other brands, then here's AVO. And not that anything was wrong with the brand at all, but it looked a little tired in comparison to what the others were doing. So it was the perfect time. And I remember sitting with AVO and talking to him about it, and he was over the moon. I mean, just so excited. And we spent so much time working through that and getting it ready to kind of refresh and have a new kind of look and feel to it, change packaging, rework box counts and pricing. And that was some of his most excited times, I feel. And he loved every moment of it. He wanted to try. We need to get out. We need to travel, and we need to go see the people, so it was a blast, man, to be able to work with him on that and pick his brain and really go through piece by piece with him. And he was super grateful, and it definitely gave him energy and wanted to do more and more. And the ideas were just flowing with him. And I mean, when I live in the Tampa area, and he was in Orlando, and I mean, I talked to him every single day, multiple times, and he always, Scott, come over. And I was like, I do have work to do in the office. I have to be here, but I'll be over. So I'd see him at least once or twice a month, and we'd spend a couple days together and go through. But I'd talk to him every day, walk him through what we were thinking or what his ideas were, and kind of incorporating everything. So it was a blast, and I think that really gave him another a second wind, if you want to say, to keep going and give it everything he's got.
You talk about the life that he celebrated along with it, and I always paint this perspective when he's come up in conversation about the long and rich life that he led. I always tell people about my grandmother, who lived a very long and rich life too. She passed away when I was 14, and she was born 3 months after AVO Uvazian was.
Wow.
So that's how long.
1926. Yeah.
Yes, that's how long AVO Uvazian blessed us with this time here. And to that point, not just with the improvisation that we were talking about in just a moment ago, but there's a lot of other efforts to continue celebrating this man's life, and not just in the regular production items like the heritage and the classic we were talking about, even with this, the new synchros, the Fagata, the Ritmo, the Nicaraguan. Why is that still such an important focus? Is it because it was something that he started? And you guys want to continue that legacy, or is it something different?
No, that's correct. I mean, when we talked about, and going through the refresh and choosing what what blends and what formats that we're going to bring back and kind of streamline the portfolio, if you will. Like, what are our winners? You know, here we are 25 years or so, a little after into the brand, and it's an established brand. But what are our winners? What are the fan favorites? And instead of having too much to offer, let's offer what the people want. And so we were able to focus on that with the core stuff, with the stuff that's been around. And then in talking with AVO, it's like, what could be what's something new and fresh and something that we can do for the brand that hasn't been done before. And you know, his thing was Nicaragua. Why don't we try Nicaragua? And then also the box press, because AVO Nicaragua, Synchro Nicaragua, was the first box press that we've offered as a production line. And just something like that was to kind of venture past just you know, our Dominican tobaccos and things like that, and try different things, but do it AVO's way. So it still had to be smooth. It had to be complex. It had to be the way AVO cigars were, but just with a different taste profile. And that really started, because that was a really big hit for the brand. I mean, we did extremely well with that, and a lot of people liked it. We brought a lot of new people into the brand, which was also a lot of fun to see people who maybe had AVO before years ago, but had moved on, and their palates changed, and they're looking for different things. And we were able to you know, offer a product that they would enjoy as well. So at that time, it was a really big deal, and then it just kind of continued with each release, with Fogata and with Ritmo, and it was us kind of taking a little different path with different tobaccos and different taste profiles. Still true to the AVO brand in the sense of the, you know, the how smooth it was, and the construction and all of that, and the stories behind it. But it allowed us to kind of branch out a little more, and he was all for that. He was super excited, and I remember showing him Ritmo and all of that, you know, when he wasn't doing so well, and you could see the colors of the packaging, and Ritmo meaning rhythm in Spanish. It totally had the musical equity in there, and he was.
The colors is what really captivates you with the AVO brand, specifically the Synchro series. Yeah,
yes. It's bright, it's fun, it's inviting, you know.
So since anniversaries and these celebrations had been such a huge, like the improvisation series had been such a large part and one of the most enjoyable experiences that AVO had while he was here, you knew it was going to come eventually, like you said, you know, his passing obviously, but the harder part was reaching that pivotal milestone, you know, a 25th, a 30th, a 35th, a 40th, and so on, where he wasn't around. Of course, that happens, unfortunately, this past year with the 30th. How important was you, and how much work went into trying to create that on such a pivotal milestone anniversary, something that would be worthy of him?
Great question. I mean, one of the things is I've talked to him too about, you know, we always look ahead. What's next, right? What's coming soon? And I had talked to him too about AVO 30 years and, you know, celebrating the brand. And, you know, at the time it's like, you know, do we bring back some old favorites? Do we create something new? And I had talked to him, let's bring some stuff back, because he loved having his vintage stuff that he would give out to people. This one I launched back in, you know, 1995 or you know, whatever it was. And so he loved kind of the historical blend type piece. And one thing he said was LEO5. We bring LEO5 back, you know, and
such a good cigar.
It's a great cigar, thank you. And it's like that was a challenge in itself, and I could talk more on that in a second. But I think, you know, knowing that milestone was coming, knowing AVO was still there at the time, we knew that was coming, to kind of get his input on it, and he, you know, things like his signature blend, and with AVO signature, and that was something he he would love to see. He never wanted to see it leave when we had the rebrand kind of, and he was like, we should keep that. And it's like, well, we could always look for the future for that, maybe for 30 years, you know, and stuff like that. So there were some hallmark stuff that he definitely wanted. And, you know, we looked at AVO Maduro as well, which was a huge hit for us in 30 years, and the formats. And it was like, we need to bring back stuff or offer blends that, you know, the AVO fans have really appreciated, that really had a great story, and that's something that they can be a part of as well. And you know, for instance, LEO 5, it's like, if you weren't around smoking cigars in 2005, it's probably pretty difficult to get to try one. Or AVO 22, right? It's like, there wasn't many around. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. So if you came into the brand new, or you've heard about some of these cigars, but you've never actually got to experience it. And I think that was a big part. It was about inclusion. It was about bringing back fan favorites and letting everybody get a chance to experience them. So it was a lot of fun to work on, and it was a lot of fun to you know, have that many favorites come out in a short amount of time. Basically every other month we had something new coming, and our retailers, the fans around, everyone was excited about it. And I think we did it right for him. He would have been through the moon, you know. So it was fun.
So the again, I want to kind of get into more of the nuts and bolts side a little bit, but still with what we've been talking about tonight, Scott. You know, with the passing of a patriarch of any brand, you know, I mean, and we could even venture this to, you know, outside of cigars, you know, when people's names that are associated with things that you think about, like, you know, Ralph Lauren, you know, Calvin Klein, you know, when the name is and the person is so much a part of that brand, and if, you know, they're no longer with us, it sets certain challenges that we talked about just a few moments ago. But within those challenges, you know, where does AVO sit, you know, inside the David portfolio today, and where do you think that's going to be in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think where it sits today is you know, where it's been. We haven't adjusted much, you know, and it's the brand itself it's been established. It's tried and true for over 30 years now, and it's okay. Unfortunately we don't have the face, right? We don't have the face of the brand, but we know what the face and the mentality was, right? And we know what made that special, and if we can bring a part of that back into everything we do, then the brand doesn't change much, and it doesn't need to change much. And I think it's just it's honoring that. It's not forgetting. You never forget where you come from, right? I mean, that's if you've made it to a certain spot, don't forget what got you there. And I think that's something we really look to have in everything we do. Again, where does AVO, the brand, sit within the portfolio? It's still premium cigar. It's not as you know, exclusive or as expensive or premium as a Davidoff would, but you have very similar characteristics to some of these products. Yet that's been the way ever since the history of the AVO brand. So we're very comfortable where it is. We're very comfortable with how it's doing. I mean, we're thrilled. I mean, the brand has really done an incredible job, and we're getting growth each year after year after year, and it's really on a good ride, a good path right now, and we're super happy with that.
I think one of the unique things that the unique positions that AVO, the brand, sits in within the portfolio is the fact that it's had such a long and storied history within this parent company of Davidoff of Geneva. You know, where other brands that have gotten acquired over the last few years, you know, pick any, Leva,
Yep.
Toronto, etc. It's a little bit more challenging because the history isn't there with its new parent. AVO
Yep.
in this case is very unique because it has such a long and storied history. As you mentioned earlier, Mr. Uvasian was driving around with Henke Kellner and Eladio Diaz talking about that field where the domain tobacco is grown. So, I mean, that all those stories help continue spur along the legacy of this brand and where it sits in the portfolio of it. I have to ask the dumb question, but I think it's important, and it would just, I think it would crush me personally if it didn't continue to be. But music is going to still be a central part of the AVO brand for its existence, right? It has to be, right? It has to.
Of course, it's in its DNA. It's part of it. Without music, without music, we wouldn't have AVO as we knew him. We wouldn't have AVO Cigars. We wouldn't have any of this. So super important. But we also look at what else, right? AVO did a lot. He didn't just play piano too. I mean, he was a man of the world. He traveled constantly to countries, that we may never have heard of, like really different places, loved people. It was about connections and meeting people and didn't matter who you were, what economic status you had, what race, whatever. He was a fan of yours, and I think some of that also plays in to his worldly travel and meeting people and connection. Music, of course, is what he's known for and is built into the cigars, but there's also that aspect as well, and there's more stories and more things that we can tell and we can incorporate that were still part of its founder and a very big part of it. So yes, music's not going anywhere, and it will always be tied in some way or another. And there is more than just music, and some of that we could definitely bring out. I mean, even Synchro and the whole series was about traveling, right? It was about leaving and going off the beaten path and not just staying stagnant in one thing. And that was AVO all the day. He kind of navigated through life on a whim. Like he didn't have a lot planned. He wasn't one that was very regimented, just like his jazz music, right? It was kind of off the page. Let's go. This feels right. These people seem right. Let's go this way. And then, so that's a part of the brand as well. And, but music again is really what it's known for, and brought him to the table and the brand and all of that. So we will never lose that. Never, ever.
With those sirens going off in the background, I had to wonder if we stumbled on some shaky ground or something.
Yeah, right. Alarms going off. No.
But I think you have a very large challenge in itself, Scott, because and with that challenge comes not to be cheesy, but it comes a great responsibility that you have, because you have what the next generation will be after you, because you won't always be in your position. You might retire one day. That might happen. Maybe you'll be like AVO and go until forever as well, but
yeah,
you might retire one day. But then the next generation will come in that didn't have the privilege. And that one of my greatest sadness is we've lost a lot of patriarchs in the cigar industry, legends. We put this legendary tag on. It's overused. I frankly overuse it quite a bit sometimes, but I'm not overusing it in the case when I mentioned AVO Uvasian, and one of my great sadnesses is that I didn't get a chance to meet him, and I know so many people that did, and so many people, and he's exactly every occurrence of meeting this man is exactly as how you described. It's 100% sincere and genuine. It's almost like everybody had the identical fantastic experience with him. But there will come a time where people are talking about promoting, recreating, building this brand that we know as AVO today that didn't have the great privilege and honor of knowing him. if we could kind of turn ahead the clock, if you will, from where you sit today, 2 years, almost 2 years and 1 month
Yep.
after the passing of him, and no question the direction is fantastic now. But if you could turn forward the clock, what would be one piece of advice that you could give to the future generation that's going to represent this brand one day?
It's a great question there. I mean, I think some of it is, you know, founders and creators and legends of brands. They do pass away, and you know, if people, you have to, first of all, if you're in this, and you have to be passionate, right? And if you know the story behind it, I mean, I can't tell you how many newer people that have come into the brand didn't even realize about Avo the man, and then read about it or hear the stories, and they still light up like, you know, he's in the next room. So I think because they're like, no way, I didn't know that. Oh, that's really cool. You know, all these type of things, and there's still that kind of connection without meeting the man, and the way people tell the story too, and the twinkle in their eyes when they talk about it, that resonates with people that haven't met him. For instance, I never met Zeno Davidoff, right? But I still feel super connected that way with the man because of what he's done and because of what I've read about him or heard about. And I still feel, you know, those type of people that have had such impact on you know, other people throughout, that the spirit still lives on. And as long as the story isn't forgotten, I think we'd be in good shape. I mean, I really do. And I think my best advice to people is, you know, is just, if you're passionate, if this is what you want to do, then go. The passion will lead it, and you'll do the right things and all of that. And that to me is the most important.
I feel particularly comfortable that the brand of known as Avo will carry on in generations simply because of the man behind it. Not that other brands who lose their figureheads are any less or so, but you know, as we've talked extensively tonight, Scott, about his larger in life, you know, status. You know, he wasn't just a cigar guy. He wasn't just a musician. He was a great traveler, you know, almost a statesman of like, he had friends inside and outside the industry. I mean, he
spoke 9 languages. I mean, he can
languages.
communicate with anybody.
That's one of my favorite things about him. Like, I mean, I truly, when you say the term Renaissance man,
yes,
there's a, you know, when, you know, you look up Renaissance man in the dictionary, you see a picture of Avo Uvasian. I think because of the type of man that he was and the stories that live on and the generations that those stories are going to get passed down to, it's really going to serve the brand from, you know, inside, you know, from, you know, to the, as little of importance as it is, you know, from a business perspective, it'll carry on to great effect simply because of the man that he was.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll still look at these milestones too. You know, he had a birthday cigar every, you know, whether it was every 5 years, could be in between, depending on what the number was. And he was a big fan of numerology and that type of stuff. And, you know, that's something too that we can always keep. We can always talk about, you know, 100-year anniversary or whatever it is, and keep bringing that back, which gives us a chance to go deeper and deeper into the story about the man. And people are super intrigued. I mean, Avo was it's not he did all the things, and he did them on his terms, and he did them in a time where you know, it wasn't that common, and he definitely broke barriers and did a lot of different things. And there's so much rich content that we can share with people that'll really help them connect. So I think it'll be in good shape.
Again, another to reemphasize what a long and rich life he led. We only lost him 2 years ago, and in just 7 years, we are going to be celebrating his 100th.
Exactly. I mean, he got started in cigars in his 60s, you know, so where people are looking to retire, he's ready to go chapter 2, like let's do it. And he brought that energy every day. I mean, you know, because he was in his 90s and stuff and like that, it did not slow him down, and he wanted to do more and more. Though the important thing too was his mind was always sharp. His mind always was good. He'd wake up every morning. He'd do the New York Times crossword puzzle and pen in 10 minutes. Then he'd get on the piano. Yeah, I mean, very, very intelligent man, dude. And then he would always play the piano. And because he said it kept his mind sharp too, and his fingers and basically motion and all of that. And he had his routines to do, and he never wanted to sit still. He didn't want to sit at home. He was always out. So whether it was going to the cigar store every day or going for coffee in the morning, he had friends and people that would come and meet him to talk and listen and all of that. And that's what kept him going. People kept him going. You know, and I think that's a real special thing as well. He didn't tire out with age or anything like that. It was the joy of connections with people that kept him going. And it was all through cigars. I mean, it was all through cigars. And that's what's so special about cigars as well, is that you do get to be part of this bigger family. I mean, anyone could sit down and have a cigar and talk and become friends and do all of that. It's a great kind of I don't know, passageway to making these great connections, and it's something he celebrated.
You know, I think there's a lesson to be learned there about the way that he tackled life, and that we should all take a cue from, you know, to continue to keep our mind sharp and to treat everyone as a friend. And I think you bring up a brilliant point, Scott, about, you know, just sitting down in a cigar lounge, and he probably started thousands of conversations with people he had never met before, and he would consider them a friend by the end of it. And it's a point worth making that in the course of this show that I've done 75 takes now, there have been several, including today, where I hadn't met the guest that I was sitting across from. And I haven't had the privilege of meeting you until this evening.
Right now.
Yet here we are at the tail end of a great conversation. And it's all because of this.
Exactly. This is it. It's a beautiful thing, man. It really is. And you know, the listeners out there, the fans out there, it's like we're all brought together because of this, you know, and it's just a really, really cool thing. And AVO appreciated that. It was a tool that allowed him to meet more people as well. You know, it was something that he loved people. He loved bringing joy to people. So it was something that, boy, he could do that. He did that with music when he performed, and then he was really able to do it with cigars on a much bigger scale. And that was his greatest joy.
You know, we talked about music tonight a lot, and this kind of leads us into my last question, which is my curveball segment. And my curveball segment is always something that, you know, it could be related, mostly not. It's off topic typically, and but I had to ask you before the show if you were a musician as well, spending so much time around a man where music was such a central key part of his life, and you told me that you weren't. So the question for the curveball segment for tonight, Scott, is if you could be a musician and you could pick up any instrument and play it with the excellence that Alvo Uvasian did, what instrument would it be and why?
It may sound generic, but it would be piano. I mean, I've always been
Right?
has to be. But it was I was always a fan of piano music. I mean, I loved it. And to hear about it and to hear it explained through Avo's mind, I guess, and the way he talked about it, it was so intriguing to me. It's something I wish I could do. I don't have the talent there. And I'm like, oh, you know, this would be great to learn. And I could have AVO, you know, give me lessons and all of that. I didn't have it, but that would 100% be what I would would love to be able to play and sit down, and also the times, you know, you're in a room or you're at an event or something and there's a piano or even a keyboard around, and the way you could light up a room just by jamming on this thing, and I've seen AVO do it hundreds of times, and the joy it brings people and lightens the mood and all of that. It would be a really, really cool thing to be able to do, but unfortunately not my thing. But I'll leave that to the other great musicians out there that can do it.
But the lesson that we just learned from AVO, Scott, was to never leave any cards on the table. You should pick that up. You should pick that up.
That's right. Yeah.
So maybe we'll talk again, and you'll have picked up piano, and you'll be serenading us next time we have the privilege of having you on.
One day. That would be cool. That would be cool, man.
So. Well, Scott, I really appreciate your time tonight. And we appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate all your likes, shares, and comments. Be sure when you check us out and you download our podcast, make sure you subscribe. And I hear a cool little trick is actually if you unsubscribe and then resubscribe, it actually makes a cool little difference. So go ahead and do that. Just don't forget to hit the resubscribe button because it'd be counterintuitive if you didn't. But leave a review and let us know how we're doing with all of our amazing guests, like our guest, Scott Kolesaire tonight of AVO Cigars. And again, if you are listening to us anywhere you listen to podcasts, you're listening to us exclusively because of Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars. And if you're looking at us today, you're looking at me in the Caldwell Cigar Studios of Euless, Texas. Caldwell Cigar Company was created in 2014 with a very simple agenda to create special cigars using well-aged rare tobaccos and to enjoy the hell out of what they do. They are a business built on friendship and fun. Their goals will always be creation, innovation, and ambition. Sounds kind of familiar, what we were kind of talking about, Scott.
Absolutely. It's a good recipe.
And again, we really appreciate our guest tonight, Scott Kolesaire, wearer of many hats, of course, Director of Marketing for AVO Cigars, and a great friend of the man that we talked a lot about tonight, AVO Uvazian. And we appreciate, again, all of you. For everyone out there, I'm Bear Duplessis. Guess what? We'll see you next time.